morning. Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education and Youth, Dr. Casson Troop, Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Terrian Thomas Gale, Acting Chief Education Officer, and all the other members of the Ministry of Education and Youth, members of the media, and for those joining us online at the MOEY and JIS YouTube and Facebook platforms. I'm Ruth Ann Carr. Good morning and welcome. This is the Ministry of Education and Youth's press conference on Hurricane Beryl disaster recovery plan for the education sector. Today, we'll have presentations by Mrs. Latoya Harris-Garty, Executive Director, National Education Trust, NET, who will present on how to route your donations. Check NET first, always. And from our Minister, Mrs. Favour Williams, who will update the nation on the strategic plans to ensure a smooth reopening of our schools for the new school year. But before all those presentations, help me welcome our Permanent Secretary, Dr. Casson Troop, who will do the official welcome.
Thank you so much to our moderator. Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure this morning to welcome all of us to our press conference, designed to give the nation an update on what has happened to our schools and how the ministry is responding to same. So this morning, I have some key persons with me, as referenced earlier, and it is my joy to welcome first and foremost our Minister of Education, the Honorable Favour Williams. Let's make her feel welcome. She's here in the room with us. And we'll first give an update to the nation in summary, and then, of course, our own Latoya Garte will come with some specificities as part of the updating as we plan today. Let me also welcome our Chief Education Officer Acting, Mrs. Thomas Gale, always with us, Head of the Division of School Services, a massive part of the work. I do not envy her today. A lot is on her shoulder as we get prepared for back to school in the new academic year. Let me welcome our Deputy Chief Education Officer for the Education Planning and Development Division, Mrs. Vivienne Johnson. Has played a critical role in the post-disaster assessment phase, and we really do not want to undervalue the role of the Planning and Development Division in our education ministry. Let her feel welcome. Let me welcome our Deputy Chief Education Officer for Curriculum Services, Mrs. Winnie Berry, who is always with us, a very supportive team member, and I'm happy she's here as well in the room with us. We have Mrs. Latoya Harris-Garty, who is the Executive Director from NET, and she's crucial to the conversation today as they are my technical team in the field, and she's supported by Keisha Johnson, who is the Director of Donor and Sponsorship Portfolio at the National Education Trust. And of course, special welcome to Mr. Kerry Brown, who is the Director of our Technical Services Unit, who is solely responsible for the schools and the maintenance and the critical repair. And so he's also in the firing line. But I'm proud to say the technical team, they have been out into the field and they have been doing the work This is why we could come today to have an update provided to you based on the work that has been done by the technical team. Please let them feel welcome in the room. Let me also welcome the other members of the executive management team. Some persons are online, but in this room we have our regional director for Region 1, Mr. Otis Brown. He's next door, so it's always easy for Region 1's director to come over and represent the core. And of course, we have the regional director for Region 6 in the room, Mrs. Fiona Morris-Webb. They are new to the table in this role, but of course, they are hitting the ground running. Chief among our participants in the room this morning as well is our Acting Chief Education Transformation Officer, Mrs. Sophia Forbes-All. We are happy that she's on board because the transformation pillar, infrastructure and technology is a key pillar. And so she is also a part of the voice to carry the message about the transformation program. We have other key members in the room, and I cannot fly without them. Of course, we have our Executive Director for National Council on Education. We know the importance of governance in our schools, and of course, Ms. Murray is here with us. Please feel welcome, Ms. Murray. So, colleagues, all the other members of the technical team from NET and from the communications team, they're all here in this room, and we are grateful. So again, it is my joy to welcome all of us. And before I go, let me welcome the media. We could not do this without you. You are giving us legs into the different areas of this country, and we are grateful. So this morning, we are going to give the nation an update as to the impact of the hurricane on our schools and the plans that we have put in place for the recovery process. I will now hand over to my minister, the Honorable Favour Williams, who will provide us with the summary update.
Thank you, PS. Good morning, everyone. Or let me add my special acknowledgement for Permanent Secretary, our Chief Education Officer, of course, our Executive Director, the National Education Trust, the entire team of the Ministry of Education and Youth here at Central, plus all those in the field, whether you're online or you're physically here this morning. Let me acknowledge all our boards, our principals, our educators, our practitioners, our school staff, family, students, and all our young people across the island, members of the media, good morning. Let me begin by saying a big and heartfelt thank you to all across Jamaica who have helped so far and who will continue to help our children, our young people, and our schools recover from the passage of Hurricane Beryl. Your commitment and collaboration are important and drive our efforts at transforming education for national development. So today, I'm here to update the nation on the state of our schools. We've been out in the field now for several days. I will also update the nation in terms of our children's homes and places of safety, our libraries and youth innovation centers, and we'll share our plan of action as it pertains to recovery efforts in tandem with Back to School 2024. We understand the urgency and state that it is imperative that we begin restoration efforts immediately, considering we only have approximately 6 or so weeks until the reopening of schools. So as of today, and we had a meeting with all our technical persons involved in the recovery efforts this morning, the most current number that we have is that 309 primary and secondary schools have been assessed as having suffered damage. And in terms of the monetary figure, we've estimated that that is now at approximately $2.7 billion. We have segmented these schools into 3 priorities. Priority 1 would be those schools that have been severely damaged, that we have to begin the restoration in order to have them in a place where they can be safely opened come September 2nd, 2024. We have 85 of those schools, and the estimated damage there is $1.42 billion. Just as an example of some of these schools, the priority schools in areas like Region 5 from parishes such as St. Elizabeth. Some of the names are Bull Savannah Primary, Sandy Bank Primary, Pedro Plains Primary and Infant, Monroe College, Hampton School for Girls, among many others out in Region 5. For priority schools that are in the priority category number 2, those are schools that have suffered damage, but they can operate while work is underway. We have 110 of those schools moderately damaged and will require significant repairs. But let me share that despite their scope of work, these schools will be able to operate while repairs are being undertaken. And then in the category 3, these schools that have suffered minor damage, they can operate as well while the work is being done. There are 114 of those in that category. Minimal damage, that would include things like fallen trees on fences, on guttering, on roofs. So to date, the technical team from the ministry has identified contractors for schools, those in the priority 1 category, those that are severely damaged. Let me say that the technical team continues to be in the field. They're there currently, continuing to carry out their assessment, to finalize the procurement documents, to assign registered contracts, to carry out the repair and reconstruction. We will be using the single source procurement methodology under emergency conditions, in keeping with Public Procurement Act and policies. Additionally, and the PS can speak to this as well, all regions will be dispersed some emergency funds. I know that process has started already, and if not already received, very close to being received. And this is for cleaning up exercises and other critical activities. Let me turn now to our Child Protection and Family Services agencies, which is, they would have done the assessment of our places of safety. And I want to update that while damage was relatively minor across the different facilities, there was major damage to the Manning's Child Care Facility in St. Elizabeth. We note that damage was done to the roofs of the facility's kitchen, main dining room, a dormitory, and farming equipment storeroom. But of greatest importance, and what I'm most happy to share, is that our children in state care were safe during the hurricane and are safe since its passage. If we look across our public libraries, we have 110. We do note that there's some damage there. So, for example, there's been damage to the roofing at the Greater Portmore branch, which has resulted in its closure to the public until further notice. Water damage as a result of leakage to libraries. We also assessed our youth innovation centers, and we note very minor damage across them. There were some downed utility wires in St. Elizabeth, fallen trees in Clarendon. We're also happy to report that youth engagement continues in these spaces. The National Education Trust, as you heard, is the agency under the Ministry of Education and Youth with responsibility for donations, receiving donations, ensuring proper accounting of those, and the CEO will come to you shortly to explain that process as well. Many persons and entities have been inquiring, and we'd love to let them know how to do it. And so Ms. Garte will be here momentarily to do that. We also did touch bases with our independent schools just to find out how they are doing. We did this by way of a survey. We received responses from 33 schools. 42% of them indicated some type of damage as well. We know that while most schools are on holidays and while many have lost utilities, we encourage all our parents to remain in touch with our principals in our schools and to so that they can be kept abreast. I know many of our schools have WhatsApp, and they utilize that to send information out to parents. If we move now to the plan of action, as I mentioned earlier on, internally in the ministry, we have the Technical Services Unit and our agency NET. They're the two main entities responsible for utilizing the emergency procurement process, contracting with contractors, engaging contractors. I know that they're busy with that process, finalizing the paperwork, because at the end of all of this, despite this being a disaster and emergency situation, we still have to observe all the rules of proper governance of this process. We're expecting to see the work started on several of the priority schools by the beginning of the coming week, and we will be visiting these schools to keep the nation abreast. Additionally, and very important, we will publish by Monday the list of all the schools in all the categories with the assessment, the quick update in terms of the damage assessment, because we want this process to be as transparent as possible. We talk about the number of schools that are damaged, but we want Jamaicans to know which schools, which ones they are, and how we've categorized them, so that the communication is clear. And when we get to September, we'll be at a place where we are managing properly, and schools will be able to open. So we're managing expectations as well, because you've heard the number of schools. There are a lot of schools, but we are getting out there to do the work to ensure that the new school year starts smoothly. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll hand it back over to our permanent secretary.
Thank you so very much, Minister. And at this moment, we will welcome our Executive Director from the National Education Trust, Mrs. Latoya Harris Garty.
Morning, everybody. All protocols having been established, I'll just get straight into the meat of the matter. I know a lot of people associate NET with infrastructure, and yes, the team is out there, and Minister reported. We have assessments ongoing. I want to ensure also that everybody is familiar with NET, the registered charitable organization. And that's critical to everything that's going on. I know that persons out there are, at this time of year, we usually process donations for alumni and different groups. But we have a lot of persons clamoring now to give back to different things, what they can give, when they can give, how they can give. In terms of our giving, we're open to accepting in kind, in cash, and time where that allows. And when I say that allows, meaning if a school needs some cleanup assistance, we are not going to stand in your way. We will facilitate that. So the first thing, what's crucial is that you check NET first. Our contact information in terms of an email, info@net.org.jm. That email response time is always within 2 days. That's the service standard. They should respond to you within 2 days. Why is it important to check NET first? As I mentioned, we're the registered charitable organization. We're responsible for education development and ensuring that your donations reach where it should be and that we mobilize resources. If you send items to schools and it's not sent in the correct manner, what's going to happen is that you're going to have delays at port. And in those delays, customs usually sends them to us for attention. When they come through this manner, there are fixes with cost associated with those fixes that will have to occur before they can leave the wharf. And you're incurring cost to change consignment and also storage. So we want to ensure that from day one, before you ship the items, you email NET, info@net.org.jm. They'll send you step-by-step of the guidelines, and there's an Excel sheet, which we call a donation form, that we ask you to complete. Excel sheet is critical to the process. It details whether or not the items are brand new or donated to you for further donation to schools. An estimate of the value needs to be assigned. We get a lot of questions from persons indicating, but it was donated, I don't know the value. If you're sending it to Jamaica, it must have a value. If it doesn't have a value, we don't want it. It simply means everything has a value and it must have a useful life. So once you have useful life, you have a value. So you assign a value. You look, you estimate. What's the year of this computer, for example? What brand is it? What's the going market rate? You do a reduction on that based upon the year, the specs, and you give an estimate. And you include all of this detail in that Excel sheet that you send to us in Excel format. It's critical to be in Excel because we have to calculate and ensure the values. Why is this important? It's because that is what is used by customs to calculate duties and everything. Yes, what is waived at customs is 50% of the customs administrative fee. And I should say what is waived is government taxes. So there's still costs that your shipper or your agent may charge for the donation. Government can waive private partners' fees. But we waive 50% of the customs administrative fee, all duties. The only thing that's not waived is the environmental levy. So you pay environmental levy and 50% customs administrative fee. So I think I've gone into the donation process a little. Jump ahead. I'll also invite you to visit our website at net.org.jm. We have created a Hurricane Beryl page that we'll be updating in next week with details of the schools that have been impacted. We've also sent into the system for the additional resources that they need. So a lot of the talk has been on the infrastructure. Some schools may have lost resource items, books, computers. So we're asking them to provide that detail so that that can be made public to you. So on that page is what we're going to use to keep you abreast what's going on. What's nice also is that if you are so moved, you can actually donate directly on the site. You click the button, donate now. It takes you, NCB is our back end operations, so it's secure. And you can donate cash there. If you don't feel like donating through the site, we have our endowment accounts, and our endowment accounts are for donations for specific purposes, meaning if it is Hurricane Beryl that you donate to, we can only use it for Hurricane Beryl. Let me repeat that so everybody has comfort. Once you donate cash to Hurricane Beryl, we cannot divert that cash for anything else but Hurricane Beryl. We are a registered charitable organization that's guided by the Charities Act. And how we operate is that if a donor gives for a specific purpose, we can only divert those funds where we have the consent, specific consent of the donor. And the only way we would say divert funds is if there's no longer a need for that. And we know Hurricane Beryl has a wide need, so we won't need to divert any funds there. So all funds in these accounts at NCB are specific, so you can feel free to give. So we have the website that you can donate, net.org.jm, or we can provide your banking with the detailed banking information, and you can do a bank transfer. If you send an email to info@net.org.jm indicating your interest to donate, then we can always guide you in which method and ensure that your donation reaches its target. I went through the in-kind, and I just wanted like a preliminary list of what we've gotten. It's books, reading books, stationery, notepads, erasers, there are cupboards, filing cabinets, teachers' chairs, teachers' desks, classroom supplies, whiteboards, markers. These are some of the things that are coming to us. Sleeping mats for the ECIs, computers, tablets. We're always looking for computers and tablets because there are students, especially going into high school, that are in need. So we maintain that right through, even outside of Hurricane Beryl, so everybody knows. So these are just some of the preliminary listings that we've gotten so far from the system. So what's important is that you ensure that the guidelines and the requirements are met for bringing in-kind donations. Your computers, for example, they must meet the minimum specification as given by the Ministry of Education. Once you send that email indicating that you want to donate devices, the team will send you those specs. You complete that to say whether or not it meets. If it doesn't meet the specs, I'm sorry to say I cannot accept it, because I have to be guided by the ministry's technical support. What's important also is that before you ship anything, you send us that detail listing, because some of the items you may want to send, if you're sending paint, for example, for recovery, that paint requires a permit that we have to get prior to the shipment going off. If you breach that, that's a fine. So it's important from day one that you let us know what's coming. I know you might be sending paint. There's some construction material that you might want to send also. You have to give us adequate notice so that we can check with the different authorities to see if we need permits for them. Customs regulations is very intricate. As I said, if it is that you have not followed the process and you're given to an educational facility and then you go to customs expecting a waiver, customs is going to send it to us. Once customs sends it to us, there are costs associated that we would like to mitigate. So step 1, you make contact with NET, info@net.org.jm. Step 2, you complete the donation form. You provide all details, requirements as there. Your gift letter so we know what school you're giving to, and we can make contact with the school to see if they're fine with items that may not be. So you might want to send a school a refrigerator, for example. The school might say, "Hey, I don't have nowhere to put this refrigerator." So we have to, be in dialogue with our stakeholder to ensure that what you're sending can be accepted by the schools. Step 3 is that we give you an approval and we tell you, yes, go ahead, ship. 4, once you gotten that, you send us the bill of lading, and the goods must be consigned to National Education Trust. Consignee is critical to the process. National Education Trust is your consignee. You can indicate for the school but it's National Education Trust. If it does not enter the country being consigned to NET cannot provide the paperwork for clearance. So consignee must be National Education Trust. You provide us a copy of that, and it's important you provide us the area bill or bill laden. Why is that important? If you made a mistake, we can correct it, and it's easier to correct before the items reach than to correct when it gets here. Because when it gets here, costs are going to be applied. So that's why we ask you to keep us in the loop every step of the way. Then we prepare a letter pretty much authorizing a donor rep, you, the school, to clear, and you go to customs. I know customs has simplified things a bit, and we're working with them to see how the simplified process where you don't even have to go there can work. But pretty much anything above 5,000 US, we need a customs broker. The team has a preferred partner registry, we call it. The preferred partner registry really has a list of shipping companies, customs brokers and handlers, persons who has done work in the past or has indicated an interest in being in such a registry, that we know when we refer persons to them, the process will be smooth. So they've been verified. If it is that you don't have these persons on hand, we can refer you and we can give you guidance on who is best to help. So in terms of recovery support, in kind, I've given you, if you're sending items here, I've given the step-by-step, important, info@net.org.jm, that's email. We will send that. We will send you guidelines, form, and walk you through that process. If you want to give in cash, you have two options. There's a website, net.org.jm, or you can make contact with us through the same email and do a bank transfer to NCB. All donations in cash for Beryl has to be used for Beryl recovery. And I think that is a synopsis of our giving process. So remember, in your giving for hurricane relief, it's critical that you vet your entities. Ensure your entities are registered as charitable organization. They're registered charitable organizations that we're actually working with now. Food for the Poor for one. We have sort of like a bird's eye view of what's going on in education. So it's important that you check with us first. That's what I'll hammer home to everybody. You want to give, send an email, we'll respond. We'll have a 2-day turnaround time for all response. If you want to give in cash, online, donate, or we can do a bank transfer. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And I know that the media is here burning with questions, so we'll open the floor now for question and answers. We'll have the microphones passed around. Don't all ask at the same time.
Good morning, everyone. Nikki Robinson, Radio Jamaica News. The president of the NPTAG, Stuart Jacob, had suggested that the schools that are being reconstructed or rebuilt, that they are storm-proofed, and the existing or the institutions that were not as damaged during Hurricane Beryl also be storm-proofed. Is this being considered throughout the rebuilding process? If not, is it being considered for future rebuilding efforts, given that it is anticipated to be an extremely active hurricane season?
Right. So within our normal building process and assessment, that is something that's embedded in it. Because as you know, many of our schools were built decades ago. And so whenever we do any work on schools, it's with this in mind that we have to build better, stronger. And so that will be also evident during the rehabilitation of schools. For example, if a school has a zinc roof that has been totally damaged, I know that our technical people will assess it for a slab roof. Obviously, they'll need to see if they have to have reinforcement for the buildings and so on, but they have that in mind. It's part of the process as they go out and rehabilitate schools.
Good afternoon, Minister. Good afternoon, Minister. Jason Cross is the name from the Observer.
Good afternoon, Jason.
Man. There are some people who may feel that things won't be ready for September as it relates to the severely damaged schools. What do you say to them?
Okay, so we are going to give it our all in terms of the severely damaged schools. Will they be 100% ready? I'm not going to stand here and say because you heard the numbers, but I'm pleased with the efforts so far in terms of engaging the contractors, impressing on them the urgency of this. And what I do know is that we will ensure that even if there's work going on, that the property, the school property, will be safe for our teachers or students or parents to enter and so on. We expect that work will still be going on, but our vision or goal is to ensure that school can begin in these entities.
Good morning, Minister. Rochelle Williams from the JIS. This is with respect to the school grooming policy. Regarding the Kensington primary case, can you say the JTA has warned that the ruling may cause issues in enforcing grooming policies? Can you say if the minister will be introducing any proactive measures to address this? It's a two-part question. That's the first part.
Okay. Well, I just want it to be said that within the school system, within the education system currently, in several schools, there are students who attend schools with locks. And they are okay. They are embraced. They're doing well. If you will recall, last year, I made it known that no child should be required to wear covering on their hair if they have locks. And the schools that have been doing that, they've stopped requiring it. So we're not expecting that we're going to have a major issue come September, because where we are as a society today, just listening to what people are saying, there's a full embrace of our culture, our hair, our African heritage, and so on.
Okay, so just to follow up, the second part of my question, it's with respect to the grooming policy again. I was wondering if the ministry intends to change or modify any part of its policies to ensure that students' rights are upheld.
Okay, so the dress and grooming policy is a framework for schools against which we will measure the individual school's policy, right? So for example, every school should have a written dress and grooming policy. It should not be discriminatory and so on. So when we look at that, those are some of the things that we're looking for to ensure that they are in compliance. In the framework, we will emphasize, our natural hair and the embrace that we should have of that. Obviously, and I would have said this many, many times to parents, to please send their children to school with simple hairstyle, not elaborate hairstyle, because after all, school is about education. It's not a fashion show. So there's a balance, and we will continue with that message to all our parents in our schools.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Andre Williams from the Gleaner. Minister, you have said that 309 schools have been assessed so far. to a damage bill of $2.7 billion. Are there any current assessments being done, and should we expect that this figure could increase?
It could increase. That was as of yesterday. And as you heard, we reported at least 2 times now, and the number keeps climbing. So as the building assessors go out, yes, that number could change. Additionally, as you look at the priority groups, there could be some shifting around, maybe not major, but school may be assessed to be minor, could move up into another category and so on. So it's a moving target. But the important thing is the work to be done, not the focus on the number per se. And it's the work. We want to get the work started. We want to see completion, because that's the only assurance that we will have that come September, schools will be ready. Mm-hmm.
There are plans, not plans, sorry. There are concerns from within the fraternity with regard to whether teachers recruited internationally would be prepared to properly adjust and meet the social needs of students locally. So my question is, are there any plans to train these teachers, whether on the cultural aspect as well as or education curriculum, to ensure that they have the requisite skills to administer teaching to students?
All right, so let me say, just as a backdrop, in the education sector for many, many decades, probably centuries, we have had teachers in the system from all over the world. I mean, I can remember my own high school days. My chemistry teacher was from Australia. My physics teacher was from someplace else. My English lit teacher was from someplace else. My history teacher. So we've had teachers from across the world. They have assimilated. And I know even now in our system, when you look, we have teachers from Cuba. And we've had those consecutive years going now. There are teachers in our system currently from other countries. We have to ensure that we have teachers with the specialization in the hard subjects like mathematics, science subjects. And of course, they will go through orientation to or culture or curriculum. But I want to assure you that this is something that that it's not strange to the education sector. And it exists, and I can see in the foreseeable future that it will continue to be so.
And in terms of long-term solutions, because it seems as though the teacher recruitment, the international teacher recruitment as well, the ministry last year had also called for retired teachers, among others, to sort of fill the gap that we're seeing now. So are there any long-term solutions being coined right now? Because that seems more of a Band-Aid solution to the issue that we're facing now.
I wouldn't say it's a Band-Aid solution. It's a basket of solutions that we've employed coming out of COVID and facing the issue of migration, whether it be out of the profession and into another industry locally, because that happens, or out of the profession in Jamaica and into the profession in another country. So we have had to assess our situations, and to the extent that there are teachers who have retired and they want to continue in the education sector, if they've retired within the last, was it 3 years? 3 years. We welcome them. Teachers who go off on their long leave, 4 months or 8 months, if those teachers want to work in the school while they are officially on vacation, we welcome those teachers as well. We continue to produce new teachers. We have 10 teacher training institutions in Jamaica, including those institutions with teacher faculties, teacher education faculties. They continue to produce new teachers. We're expecting another 1,200 or so new teachers into the system. We've created a portal through which new teachers can upload their resumes. Schools that are looking for teachers can put up that information as well so that there's a better matching, and we cut down the time used to search. And these are some of the strategies that we have to use. I know that from the perspective of the JTA, and we had a meeting just recently, they've asked us to look at non-monetary incentives. I gave them a commitment that we will just have further conversations to flesh out what those are, and have that conversation. Many things are possible once you start talking, so that's what we're doing. But we have to utilize all the strategies that we have in our basket of strategies in order to meet our requirement come September.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thanks for the questions. We appreciate them, and you got your update just now, and we're happy for that. This is where we end our press conference for today. Thank you so very much for coming out. For continued updates, please be sure to go to our website, that's MOE website, and our Trend website as well, and follow us on our social media pages. And if you do have donations, do remember to check net first. Have a great, wonderful day. A great, wonderful day. Have a wonderful rest of the day.